And happy Saturday, December 18th, 2021. I want to thank you all for being here. Good morning. Good morning, JH, Cody with Mac Telecom Networks, Dave Robertson, DJ Ware. Good morning, everyone. Everyone now starting to pile in. We are, um, is it a week out now from Christmas? Something like that. So if you're here, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button. Let the algorithm know that you're watching this and that maybe other people should watch too. I see we had good numbers. People joined and the number have plummeted. Looks like it's climbing back up now. Just right now, 8 o'clock, 8 a.m. Central Time. Good morning, CH. Good morning, Gibby. Cody says that he needs to start his shopping today. That's rough. Week before. Good luck, Cody. Morning, Sean. TN Bighorn. Good morning and Merry Christmas. Yes. Merry Christmas to you as well. Good morning, Robert. So we'll let a few more people pile in. We'll talk about a few things. JH makes a really great point in the comments. As if you are using MikroTik, MikroTik Router OS 7.0 is out. Some awesome things in there. I believe JH, remind me if I'm going off the rails here, but I believe that zero tier is included in Router OS 7. Morning After Dark. Good morning, Joe with Cajoling Technologies. Also, if you're just tuning in, if you follow me on Twitter, if you are part of some of the Facebook groups that I'm in, the main one would be the WISP group that I'm in. If you haven't seen the poll on the YouTube page yet, I am running a poll asking how many people actually mount their Ethernet switches. So um, I had a vendor tell me that only 30% of their customers mount their Ethernet switches. So I am running my own poll to find out in real world usage from folks that are in my circle how many people actually rack mount their Ethernet switches. I think that the number is going to come back higher than 30%, but we'll see. Good morning. Greetings from Scotland. Yeah, JH says he thinks it is, but he hasn't played with it yet. After Dark says version 7 is a bit rough, but it's a good start. Okay, perfect. Sean says I saw a quick take video on Router OS 7, quite impressive based on the changes they show. Maybe we'll do an upgrade video and an overview video. Morning, David. Morning, Tony. Yeah. So I'm going to check it out at some point. I happen to have my favorite small MikroTik router right here. This is the Hex S. This thing is a beast for the price. That's around 50 USD. Actually, I was on a forum last night, and somebody was asking the price of something, and someone that was not from the United States gave the price in their currency and then translated it to USDs. But instead of USDs, they called them Freedom Eagle. What was it? Freedom Eagles. And so I thought that was hilarious. So this MikroTik Hex is around 50 Freedom Eagles. So and it has, I need to do a full video on this, but you can see it's got uh it can be powered by passive AF AT. It's got PoE out, and I buy all the MikroTik stuff that I have is all purchased by me as far as I know. Unless they've got a specific product that they want to shine uh, a light on, they don't send out gear. I've been trying to get on a list, but I don't think it exists. You can see there's an SD card slot there. You can run the Dude on this, and the Dude is the MikroTik management software. You've got a nice USB port, reset port there, and then a mode. So do you want to do switching or do you want to do routing? So that's your mode button. And you could probably rack mount this. You could probably rack mount this. I don't know if that'd be what that'd be worth. Then on the bottom, you can see our plethora of mounting options. One thing that I've seen, and maybe somebody can comment on this, one thing that I have seen popping up more and more, and I think you got to be careful where the service actually exists, is I've seen a lot of cloud-based MikroTik router management services starting up. There's one I believe that's run um, by a friend and competitor of mine down in the St. Louis area, uh, and I think it's hosted in the states. The problem with some of the services is we don't know where they're hosted. We don't know where your configs are sitting, how they're secured, things like that. So you always want to, do a little bit of research and make sure that your data, your backups, all that stuff, make sure it's protected and that you know where it is. So let me go over to the comments here real quick. Good morning, Zach. Um, JH says it depends on the brand if they rack mounted. I don't think I've ever seen a Sienna switch in a rack. So I have a Sienna router that delivers fiber, and it is definitely rack mounted. Good morning, Prav. Uh, Now I said good morning to Scotland earlier, and I'm probably going to really butcher your name, and I'm sorry about that ahead of time. Is it Gina Ward or Gina Ward? Am I completely off? Let me know in the comments. But this person says hate kit lying around. Rack up where possible. Absolutely. Dave Robertson says rack mount switches. I always mount and even smaller switches if possible. Yeah. And Cody says that he's got an RB. Is that the Cody that RB that you're talking about? Is that ruggedized one that they came out and they're advertising? You can rack mount them side by side, all that good jazz. JH says most client side ISP switches I've seen are screwed onto a plywood wall. Yeah, and it's probably going to depend on well, client side. Yeah, maybe it's going to depend on the layout for sure. Man, a lot. There are some manufacturers that are bringing affordable 25, 40, and 100 gig. I heard that MikroTik's going to have some real impressive 100 gig offerings here pretty soon. So we'll have to see. I don't know if it's true or not. Good morning, Jeremy. Yeah, the haps are great too. Um, I need to um, I need to get back around to. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 MikroTik APs that I bought that somebody tried to flash with a custom firmware. So I got them at a steal because they need to be factory reflashed, and the person was having problems. So I picked them up pretty cheap, and I'm going to run them in conjunction with router board. We're going to do some MikroTik videos. I had the Kronos hack. Kronos as in the time clock company, TN Bighorn. Is that what you're talking about? I think I heard something about it. Gibby says, "What do you think about switching from GWN 7000 to MikroTik?" So I think if you need more than one site-to-site VPN, you should probably switch. Right now, that's the Achilles heel of the GWN 7000. That is that it can only do one site-to-site IPsec VPN, and the firmware on this device just keeps getting better and better and better. So I'm hoping that that is completely corrected in this new device. I'm also hoping to see a larger rack mount version or something in the form factor of a UCM. So it is Gina. Okay, I didn't butcher it too bad. Thank you for that. Good morning, Gabriel. Let's see. Yeah, so Cody, the one thing that you're going to find is that there are very few MikroTik content creators. Um, because devices like the USG, OpenSense, PFSense, TP-Link are very like if we were looking at this on a price scale, Cody, MikroTik would be the Juniper or the Brocade of that price class. It will make you learn networking. It will make you learn the concepts, understand the concepts, and be able to apply them. And I think that's why a lot of people don't like MikroTik when you see people speaking out that blah, 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 because it actually makes them learn how things should work. So you're going to see that there's a pretty steep learning curve. They do have some good wizards, but uh, you're be prepared to learn. I wouldn't rush that content because there are some content creators. There are also some consultants. MikroTik is used in some very large carrier type operations, and there are consultants that make their entire living with MikroTik. And if you're going to bring the MikroTik content, make sure it's polished. That's all I'm going to tell you. JH says, I'd love to see QNAP and Untangle work more on the SD-WAN offering. Currently, the lineup of hardware isn't extensive enough. Yeah, so they are QNAP. I have to get to the videos, but QNAP is you're going to be able to add switches and stuff to the SD-WAN. So it's not just the router. They're doing some virtualization stuff that's going to fall into their SD-WAN. So I can't wait to see where that goes. TN Bighorn says that, yes, sir, it's the company that handles the payroll and time clock software where my wife works, and they've been down for over a week and a half. Is it related to the AWS thing that happened as well, TN Bighorn, or is this a completely separate security? And I know my wife said that people weren't getting paid and things like that. I'd be telling the boss they better be breaking out the checkbook. You cannot expect people to work and not get paid. It doesn't work that way. Brian says, so I caved and used my CCNA lab switches 3750s, which are nice switches, because I can't afford new switches for my home lab. And to my surprise, the UniFi APs through tons of runs on the wire. Seen this. I have not seen that, Brian, but I haven't specifically looked for that either. And looks like Tony, thank you, Tony, for posting that. Tony posted in the chat a link to that. I'm going to have to read that whole story. There's been a couple security incidents that if you've been watching, then you gotta figure out where you're spending your time. Mr. BB, happy Saturday. Cody says, I have a WISP that I'm helping out that use MikroTik. It's a free WISP for low income, so great time to learn. I've got a couple Canadian WISPs that I consult with. They're likely not the same customer you're talking about, but that's great, Cody. That you're donating some time, it sounds like. That's fantastic. JH says MikroTik is like learning to swim in a pool of piranhas. Yeah, and if you don't secure that stuff properly, then you end up with problems. So yeah, I've been using, you can go back and look through the videos. I've been using MikroTik for a few years. And I think there is a need for the content. So we'll just have to, and Dave Robertson is absolutely correct. MikroTik is not for the plug and play crowd. So After Dark says that Network Berg's MPLS VPLS content was on point. I'll have to check that out. Good morning, Bob Carpenter. Gina says Kronos is a ransomware attack. Oh boy, that's no good. Yeah, people need to get paid. JH says Log4j, that's the one that we've been concentrating on, is killing the embedded world right now. Yeah, and I can't get away from the memes. I just want people to tell me what's affected, what's not affected, what I should be patching, what I should be putting extreme firewall rules in for. and all I'm getting is memes. So, David says, "I thought Kronos didn't work cloud only VPN." Well, that would be interesting. I mean, AWS has been out twice in the last week. Um, Hybrid's the future. That's I'm betting all of Joe Trelli's paycheck on that. Aragon Strider says moved offices last weekend, 12 days on, too many days, but the business is functional and happy. Yeah, as IT professionals, that happens sometimes. So there's enough people here. So this last week, I had a random Amazon package show up, and I had no idea. I wasn't even expecting it. And I opened it up, and it was a set of whiskey stones and coffee that had been aged in bourbon barrels. And I couldn't figure out who it is. And then a client of mine, I don't know, and I consider him a friend as well. His name is Dale. You've seen him in and out of the comments on the live stream. Sent that to me, asked me how the coffee was. I opened it this morning, and then I have to grind it, so I'm not going to get to drink the coffee until tomorrow. Had to be somewhere early this morning, and so needed a quick coffee fix, and so so grinding was not in the cards this morning. But I am going to grind probably tonight. I'll grind some of that coffee, and we will try it in the morning. So Dale, if you're out there, I just want to let you know I really do appreciate that. I hope your wife is doing well. I hope you're doing well, and I really hope everybody here is doing well. So heading into the holiday season, I hope you're doing well all the time, but I hope everybody's feeling well. You can hear that I'm talking a little quieter. I'm just trying to take it a little easy, get excited over the holidays. Don't want to lose my voice. Need to keep it in check. Um, I don't know if you all been watching, uh, but we did the UniFi Talk video to help us test it, and somebody sent like 250 calls to UniFi Talk, ended up crashing the UDM. Uh, it rebooted, and then it wouldn't take calls, so I had to manually restart UniFi Talk. It is now taking calls. I haven't updated the jokes. This week has been a little crazy, so I'm going to update the jokes. We'll keep the free joke line going. Um, Once my free Twilio DID expires, I will not be paying 10.99 or whatever it is for a single line. I'm just not going to do that. What I am going to do is I'm going to hook a Telnex trunk into it. I'm also going to put a peer trunk between UniFi Talk and the UCM. And so, yeah, the UniFi cloud in general has been having problems. If you haven't been following that, um, they've had some issues. Of course, the AWS outage. And then it looks like they've been going up and down because they are trying to reduce their reliance on AWS. And it's interesting. So, in another part of my life where I have to vet cloud based vendors, hybrid vendors, on prem vendors, I have an entire spreadsheet of information that we look for. And it's interesting to see some of the companies that you would think would use an AWS or a Google or uh, an Oracle or an IBM or whatever cloud, and they don't. They use some little, well, you say little, and then you start looking into this, and the company actually has their own data centers and they've got them all over. So that market, don't think it's completely owned by AWS or Google or Microsoft, because it's not. There are a lot of providers that have their own data centers or are co-load in data centers that do not belong to the big players. So, um, it'll be interesting to see how things roll out over the next 5 to 10 years. But I do believe that hybrid is likely the future. Bob Carpenter says, yes, lots of people are finding out. Lewis Rossman went on a micro rant about how much of the cloud systems they were using based on AWS when their host has an outage. Yeah, from my understanding, Lewis Rossman was pretty much left with he couldn't do anything. Um, Now, I went and bought my wife's anniversary and Christmas presents, And they told me that I was lucky because 2 hours earlier their point of sale hosted on AWS was down. They were not able to take sales in store. They had no backup method to take cards. A lot of businesses now don't take checks. So, and then if we want to talk about equity, right? What happens when you have um, folks that you know don't don't can't get cards, folks that are not bankable but still need to spend money? What happens when you don't take checks? Not everybody walks around with $1,000 in their pocket. You know what I mean? Like, um, this whole notion that the cloud players need to own everything is, I mean, we should every decision we make should have equity and security um, as front running thoughts, and moving, your whole operations to something like AWS, or making it so that people can't actually own a product with their hard earned money, um, that automatically like disqualifies the equity right there. So, I mean, that for me is a huge, huge contributing factor. Um, yeah, JH says renting rack space, in my opinion, is better than a public cloud. Yeah, I don't disagree with that. You need to find the right partner, the right vendor. So I really thought at one point there was some talk. I don't know if everyone in that's watching is familiar with who Sears is. I remember the old Sears catalog, Sears and Roebuck. Well, Sears has or had massive, real estate footprints. And at one point, I had heard that Sears was going to take all their automotive stores because they used to change oil, get tires, all the whole thing, right? Full service. And they've got all of this real estate. And I had heard that at one point they were going to open their own data centers, and they were for people to colo, and they were going to rent space and stuff like that. And they were going to, basically rehab the those auto centers. And I don't think that that's happened. But if you think about a company like Sears, I mean, Amazon will probably swoop in and buy Sears, right? It's no secret that Amazon, buys, closed shopping malls. Just do a Google search. They buy these massive buildings, turn them into distribution centers, and that's the way the system works. They can do that. Um, but a lot of these locations, they would be perfect. They're in cities that have. I'm just thinking about the Sears Automotive in Peoria, and it is right off the interstate. So access to fiber. I just happen to know that there's a lot of fiber that runs down Sterling and down Interstate 74. So access to fiber for Sears would be absolutely no problem. The other thing that kind of cracked me up was that we're pretty big Halloween fans, pretty big Christmas fans as well, but Halloween fans, and Spirit Halloween went into the Sears that's closed here in Peoria, and they covered up the Sears sign on the mall with black plastic bags. Like like we couldn't tell what was underneath. I mean, it actually like makes it like stick out now, right? Like before the Sears logo was blue and it said Sears, and we knew Sears was closed, so we just didn't care. Right. But now you got these black trash bags covering the Sears logo, and you can really tell what it is. It's just, I don't know who made that decision. But Dave says, Willie, I have a GWN 7630 that dropped off the GWN cloud. It will not rejoin the cloud. It will work standalone just fine. Tried factory, resetting to factory defaults, firmware updates, etc. Any ideas? So if you SSH in, Dave, into that AP, and can you ping an FQDN? Is DNS working properly there? Sean says, yeah, that happened to Carter's and Oshkosh during the first AWS outage with US East. Must be talking about losing their point of sale. I mean, that's rough. I mean, we all see these estimates, but I would love to see the accountants actually give us a figure for every hour that these stores can't ring sales and into their point of sale. I mean, stores are struggling, right? Right now, they can't get enough help. They can't. I mean, it's a mess right now. And then to not be able to take sales as it is, oof, what a kick in the clappers. JH says, I had some on-prem servers quit working because it couldn't reach out to a random AWS server. That needs to stop. If I run it on-prem, it shouldn't need to reach out for AWS for anything. And that's, you can watch a lot of these plugins for WordPress and all this, right? When you use some of these plugins, you see them reaching out to like Google APIs, you see them reaching out to like Yahoo APIs, and you see all this stuff happening, and you're just like, okay, and so it, yeah, we got to have a conversation. I don't know how much of that's going to change JH and how much they're going to listen to us, but JH says we have a dead mall down here that was converted into a data center location. Yeah, I mean, Sean says now called Transformco. I think they are down to single digits with Sears stores. Not sure on Kmart. Yeah, and Kmart, Sears merged with Kmart. Kmart's big holding is the Martha brand Stewart or the Martha Stewart brand. Jeez Louise, the Martha Stewart brand. And David says out by the mall, that place has been empty for a while. Yeah, Sears Automotive closed a little while ago, and it would be, I think it would make a great data center location. Now, I think it's close enough to the river. Now, I'm not saying that we couldn't have some sort of weather incident or something like that. History has shown, though, that area has not had, at least in memorable time for me, a weather incident that would have me preclude it from being a data center. Bob says we started to see offices take over abandoned mall space, lots of parking for employees. Sometimes it's enough bodies to allow the place like food courts, etc., to stay in business. So what's happening here? I don't know if everybody read the news, but Apple has now like waved the flag, and they have indefinitely postponed return to the office. So one thing that I do think is encouraging, when done properly, is that employees or workers are in the driver's seat right now, and companies are having to start. They're having to start paying people what they're worth. Um, and so we could get into a real rabbit hole on this. I'm not going to get into it because I don't want to get political and any of that jazz. Um, but good for people for recognizing their worth and demanding their worth. I think that's fantastic when people can advocate for themselves. By the way, keep your eyes open because my son, we are formulating his entry into creating a social media platform for people with disabilities. So that's going to be coming pretty soon too. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We are uh, storyboarding everything right now. Aragon Strider says the great cloud demigration. Yeah. So the thing is, right, the cloud, they give you all these credits, they make it sound incredibly sexy. And then you see the real cost of moving data in and out of the cloud. And in 2020, and if you do a Google search for this, there was a GovLoop. That's the name of the publication that I read. GovLoop brought up a study that showed that in 2020, more municipalities in the United States came out of the cloud than went in. And that's because now they're realizing, now that the honeymoon period is over, how much the cloud really costs. I can't even imagine. I had my boss at my day gig forward me an email, and a Verkada rep had reached out to her, and was just like, "Oh, very salesy, very salesy." And I wrote him back and said, right now, all of our cameras have to be on prem. We have very strict requirements for camera systems. We're government, right? So that you have to make sure that transparency is there. You have to make sure the assurance is there, things like that. And Verkada is a company that in the state of Illinois, you can turn on facial recognition in their cameras, even though it's illegal to use it in the state of Illinois. So that right there, that one little detail, and they're hosted on AWS, that's their platform. That one little detail right there about Verkada should tell you that they don't understand the market in Illinois and all they're trying to do is make a sale. Can you imagine paying $299 for a camera, not paying it next year, and then your recording quits? That's asinine. It's absolutely asinine. So yes, I do think you're going to see cloud migration. There was another study, you can Google this. There was another study that said that software vendors understand, and it was a significant portion. It was between 60 and 80% of software companies understand that not having an on-prem solution is now these are cloud-based companies are they understand that it's hurting their sales, and so a lot of them are now investigating hybrid or on-prem. Uh, Joe says that I'm looking skinny. I appreciate that, Joe. I will tell you, I do not feel skinny. Sean says we use one login for a single sign-on, and they have weathered it, but there is concern around resiliency on these platforms due to cloud outages. Yeah, what happens when all your authentications in the cloud, and then Bezos has got to sell, uh, you know, 46% of his unrealized capital gains, and then he crashes the stock market in AWS and all that. Anyway, let's see. Tony says all Sears and Kmart gone out of business within the last 2 years in North Carolina. Yeah, it's a hard row to hoe. JH says many dispersed smaller data centers tends to be better than large data centers. I agree with that. Absolutely. And when we are vetting a piece of software, not only do we vet the software, we vet the data center if we have that information, because it's always a concern. Because if I can touch a box, I can own it. Ask Capital One and AWS, right? So, um, and don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-cloud. That may sound like I'm anti-cloud. I'm not anti-cloud. I think the cloud has its benefits. It has its downfalls. Just like on-prem has its benefits, on-prem has its downfalls, right? So there's a give and take, which is why I think hybrid is likely the future. JH says on-prem cloud like HP GreenLake is kind of nice if you want the cloud feel but have it on site. Bob says cloud is awesome until it rains. Everything is awesome until the host network connectivity gateway router is down. So who does hybrid well? VMware, and there's a lot of if you're running Ubuntu, if you install Ubuntu server, well, I haven't installed the latest versions, but you used to be prompted to basically install the Ubuntu cloud, right? So you can have your servers talking to each other. You can spin up VMs. So there's a lot of software out there. There's even a lot of open source software out there, Bob, if you take a look at it. All right, post your networking comments, questions, concerns, and we will answer those if we can. JH says Proxmox is nice. Synology also has a lot to offer now too. Yeah. So in the Synology hardware, they are getting beefier hardware. So QNAP has virtualization already. QNAP actually has a full line of networking solutions. And I think I saw they're getting into 100 gig. They definitely just released a desktop 25 gig switch. So that's already there. And I think I saw that they are getting into 100 gig. Now, the one advantage that QNAP has always had over Synology is the breadth, the depth of the hardware that they offer. Their hardware offerings have always been like just insane, like huge servers, lots, multiple processors, tons of memory, tons of storage, but well, and we're going to check it out because I've got the Ryzen box in there, and I'm going to be doing a video on that hopefully this week. And I also have a new Synology. Synology shipped me a Synology. I think I have to send this back. Um, you know, um, uh, uh, Tony, I don't know if they reached out to you, but so my in-house Synology changed the way the inside of the organization works. I was working with sales and marketing. Uh, Sales and I are having some conversations, but marketing is back, and that's why I'm getting the router. But they sent me this other NAS, and it's sitting upstairs, and I need to get it out of the box. They sent me a 10 gig copper card for it. I think I have to send this one back though. We'll see, but we'll probably do like a side by side. Bob says, I would love to see a mashup of QNAP hardware and Synology software, a match made in heaven. Absolutely. So maybe Synology will buy QNAP. David Anderson says, True NAS and Proxmox. Yeah, that's a good combination. Joe from Cajoling says, I will say this, customers can and should leverage multi-region within a cloud provider. Most of these companies who were down realize they need to budget for DR. And that's another conversation that the salesperson is likely not going to have with the customer, right? So we've got to be an advocate for the customer. When the C-suite hears, oh, we're going to move this stuff to the cloud and it's going to be great, probably what your CFO thinks, and then is going to translate to the CEO, unless they're tech folk. Probably what they think is, all right, we're going to be able to trim the fat from employees. We're not going to need this person, that person, and the other thing. And that couldn't be any further from the truth, because you still need to have people who understand backups. You still need to have people who understand security. Um, and so you're likely not going to get to lay people off, because AWS does not manage your backup. They do not manage your security. I mean, just go out and do a Google search for unsecured S3 buckets, right? And there are actually paid services that will let you search for keywords in unsecured AWS buckets. So, you know, it's yeah, it is what it is. I mean, just because, I mean, literally with the cloud, all you're doing is moving the server that was at your site to another site. That's it. That's all you're doing. That's all you're doing with the cloud. And then they're charging you for accessing that data, right? So, and like I said, it's good for some things. Don't get me wrong. It is, that's why I think hybrid is the future. Don't take it as that I'm anti-cloud. But it has to be evaluated on an as needed basis. And it's funny, and Joe, I know you work for AWS, and I know we've talked about the bonus that you would get for bringing people in. I know you didn't give me a dollar amount. I don't want to get you in trouble, but um, you know, he had to say, region within the provider, right? He didn't say, create a VPN from one provider to another and use multiple providers. So, but that's an option as well. Yeah, QNAP virtualization is good. We're going to find out how good it is. And I'm going to give you an update on the Synology hard drives. You saw me, was it earlier this year, last year, when Synology first started selling their own hard drives. They sent me some. I've been running them, and I've been running virtual machines on them. And we're going to take a look at them. And I will say, I've not had any failure. I'm also not doing it at scale, but I've been running Windows servers, Linux servers, and I haven't had any issues. So we'll take a look at those. I'll probably release a quick video on that maybe tonight or tomorrow. And I've been thinking about starting a podcast, and maybe I'll put this out as a poll. Tim and I tried to start Geek Dives. Tim got busy, um, and I was like, well, it's Geek Dives. It really needs two people. But I'm thinking about doing a standalone podcast. I don't think it'll be video. It might be, but where I invite people in. Maybe it'll be a live podcast, and where we have a beverage of our choice and we talk about technology, and nothing will be off the table, and nothing will be sacred. There will be nothing sacred, and and if that's something that y'all be interested in, let me know, would you? Maybe I'll put a poll out about that. Yeah, Juniper. I love Juniper gear. I love Juniper gear. So also, Rack Studs is supposed to be sending me their rack mount solution that kind of looks like some of the other rack mount solutions that I've done that are made out of metal, um, but is made out of their polymer. And it'd be really cool is if Rack Studs could figure out a way, and maybe they have, maybe I just haven't read enough, and somebody correct me if I am if I am wrong, uh, if I'm wrong about this, correct me in in the comments right away. But I don't believe that the polymer that is used by rack studs currently is plant based. I believe it is petroleum based. But it'd be really cool if rack studs could figure out that portion of sustainability. Um, and there's some companies, and there's some really smart people who are figuring out how to use plant-based. And we saw it back, it wasn't that long ago in the history of the United States that the United States government was trying to get farmers to grow hemp. And there's actually a car, and I believe Ford made the car, but the all the panels of the car are made out of hemp, basically. But it's super strong and it's replenishable very quickly. And so, but I'm not saying that you got to make your rack studs out of hemp. Given where they're at, that would be kind of hilariously ironic. But it would be fantastic. Now, okay, so here we get into this IT sustainability talk, right? This is another subject that could really just take on a life of its own. But when we start talking about IT and sustainability, JH makes a good point in saying, I'd love to see rack studs use 100% recycled plastic over plant based. Now, uh, okay, I was going to ask for this, and then JH followed it up very quickly. The amount of water used to make plant based plastic is huge. So I don't know that much about it yet. Um, but hey, Gibby, thanks for being here. Have fun at work. See you, man. Um, but I have to wonder about the energy of creating a recycled plastic product as well. I mean, you have to I don't know if smelt's the right word, melt. You have to remove impurities. Um, there's a whole lot of science to that I don't have a clue about, right? When it comes to recycling. So JH, maybe you can fill us in a little bit on that. But SPX Labs is in the house. SPX Lab says, "Hey Willie, how's it going? You made a video powering a UniFi doorbell G4 with passive PoE. Did you do a longevity test on that? Sorry for changing subjects." So SPX Labs, you are 100% correct that I did a video on that. Now, let me tell you what I did. That doorbell was only plugged in while I was home. The reason for that is I'm not an electrician. I have to put that out front. So anytime you try any of those things where I tell you in the video that I'm not an electrician, you should consult a licensed electrician. Um, that was an experiment that I ran on my own. Uh, I'm sure Ubiquity probably would have preferred that I didn't do that. However, it does work. It was plugged in several days in a row. It didn't get overly hot, but because I was afraid that it would let the magic smoke out while I was testing it, I did not leave it plugged in when there was no one home. There was a stretch there where one of my kids was home, and I think it was plugged in for like 2 weeks. Now, I will tell you, I've taken that same doorbell and I gave it to a friend of mine. She wanted a video doorbell, did not want to pay for Ring, and she's been using it now since early November, and it works great. We were in a meeting the other day, and she didn't have her phone on silent, and somebody delivered a package at her house, and I could hear the tone. So it's still working. So even though I put it through that, it is still working. Now, the other thing that I saw, and it had, I can't even tell you how many days of being plugged in that thing had, quite a bit. I've seen some reports that people are like, yeah, right after my 1 year warranty's up, this thing, and I can't substantiate that. I can't back that up where they're saying that it quits right after a year or that there's a firmware problem after a year. I can't back that up. What I can tell you is that, um, what I can tell you is that it is working flawlessly right now. So, um, let's see. All right, people look like they would like a podcast. That's fantastic. So SPX Labs, I hope I answered uh, the questions there, and yeah, go. Tony does a really great job of helping us share the love with the other content creators. So take a look through the top chat or through the chat, and Tony is posting uh, links to everybody's channel. So go subscribe over at SPX Labs, uh, JTV, Cajoling Tech. Bob Carpenter needs to start a YouTube channel so you can subscribe to him. So um, let's see. Hello, TVJ. Joe says, yeah, using multi-clouds gets costly with diminishing returns. If you're leveraging the benefit of cloud, you're better off choosing one, building a DR plan, etc. So that's a whole, I mean, we could literally probably have a 40-hour conversation about that, Joe. People would get bored of hearing us. At some point, the arguments would be circular, and we would just be trying to prove who can stick their chest out the furthest, right? Let's see. Joe says, "You ready for me to break UniFi Talk again?" LOL. No, do not break it. I'm trying to get through all of its features, so that we can do a comparison video of UniFi Talk versus other platforms. So that is coming. Bob says, any OnVIF doorbell cameras that don't cost an arm and a leg and run on an AWS data egress. So Doorbird is a brand. I need to get one. I've been running into Doorbird more and more often. I'm starting to pick up a few clients that are remodeling homes. I know the real estate market's really weird right now too, right? So um, uh, they're remodeling places, and I'm seeing 2N. Is it 2N or 2Wire? But I'm starting to see that, and Access actually bought that product, but I'm seeing them and Doorbird, and so I really got to look into that. David says, thanks for talking about MikroTik. That reminded me to check for firmware updates. Yeah. And TVJ, we will absolutely include you in a conversation, discussion, video duking it out of the cloud versus on-site discussion. Now, I know a lot of you are closer with Joe than you are with me, so I'm going to have to go out and comb the fields and bring my on-prem experts to the table. JH is probably going to hop on there with me. Yeah, I don't think it's 2Wire. I think 2Wire might be a company that makes DSL modems. Now I'm dating myself, right? So, I don't know if we ever talked about the Pocket PCs. So I bought this one, and then I had somebody send me one. But what we're going to use this for? I mean, you can do all kinds of things with these. Now, this is the one that I bought, and you can do all kinds of things with these. You can make digital signage kiosks, and so you're saying, well, Willie, there's Raspberry Pi. What's the advantage of this? Well, this runs Windows 10 and possibly upgraded to Windows 11. I don't know, but the one thing you're going to see this. I've got this sitting here because there's a couple videos that I want to create about how we use these. Let's see. SPX Lab says, if you ever need another body for your podcast, I'll volunteer. All right. Well, you're all going to regret volunteering. If you've ever been in any of the Zoom things, you know that I love to talk and we get off on tangents, and I find the way that other people think intrigues me. And so I will find myself not attacking, but asking questions. There was a dog hair there, but asking questions because I love seeing the viewpoint and how did you get from A to B. Gibby says 2N and Doorbird, both are great products. We use them all the time. So Gibby, please remind me. 2N is not a U.S. based company originally, right? Were they based in another? And then Access bought them. I did not. I actually got rid of. So when I had I had an ISP. So I owned the first ISP in the 309446 prefix. And we bought gear from another ISP that was in downtown Peoria. And I bought from them a 16 port Boca board. If you don't remember what that is, look it up. and then bought some used modems, but I bought a lot of 56K and 33.6 modems from CDW at the time. And so, we were cruising along, 16 lines. We had a fractional T1 running at a cool 256K. We were right uptown. David Anderson says the right tool for the right job. Each has its own pros and cons and scenarios. Absolutely. So we're having this conversation. I posted the video a couple days ago about the USG, and in a situation where the USG works, it just works. I literally have people who have had USGs in production, the same USG since USGs came out, and it's still working. And they were afforded IDS, IPS. Some of them only have a 50 megabit connection, right? And they don't have any VLANs. So guess what? Now they have a $50 router running IDS, IPS that integrates into their single pane of glass. So it's all about the right tool for the right job. And that's what we should really be talking about. So, this is an Intel, they are Bob. The CPU in this is either going to be the Intel Cherry Trail Atom Z8350 or the Intel Bay Trail T Atom Z3735F. And I believe this one has 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. I'm gonna have to figure out which Wi-Fi I got on there, but what I was thinking about doing was back here mounting a TV and then putting funny technology memes or inspirational posters up there that could scroll or just change it per video. I thought that was pretty cool. And I have a 19-inch TV off offset here that would be perfect, but then I have to mount it, and then there's a negotiation with my wife about putting holes in the wall and what's plan B when I move it. And she keeps me honest there just to make sure I'm not punching holes in the wall to punch holes. Right. So, um, Bob says he would be down with the podcast. He has a perfect face for radio. Yes, me too. Gibby says, yeah, correct. England, I think. Doorbird is a German company. And you'll get a little bit of sticker shock. I mean, if I told you that it was in the same, that this 2N and the Doorbird were in the same price range as a Ring, I mean, that would be untruthful. It would be deceitful. They are not. The prices are much higher. However, it's an on-prem solution, on-VIF compatible, phone system, SIP compatible with any system that runs SIP, and no lock-in. Yeah, you pay a little bit more for that up front, but it's worth it. Joe says, "Great video on the USG. I have to say you do better videos a little slosh." So I had just started sipping. It had been a long day, um, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna have a pour and record this video that's been on my mind. A lot of these, as a content creator, a lot of these videos, I have a lot of videos that are floating around in my head, but it's like, okay, how do you deliver it and make people, I want to deliver some value. And there's probably videos that I have that have no value, but I find trying to get that value there. And sometimes lubrication may help, Joe. Sean says, T1s. I just rid of my last T1 in our organization this past week. Yeah. Uh, more and more companies are getting rid of T1s, PRIs. We can help you with that. If you need that, boy, PRIs are expensive. Now, here is one thing, depending on how many DIDs you have. The one big difference you're going to see between the traditional telcos and then like SIP based providers is that traditional telcos will sell you DIDs. They are much cheaper and they sell them in like blocks of like 25, right? So when you're calculating that, the ROI on that, make sure that you know how many DIDs you're going to port from a traditional provider over to your SIP provider, so that you have the cost correct, right? With Telnex, up until the, I think it's 50 DIDs, the DIDs are $1 a piece, right? Whereas on a traditional telco provider, I may have 50 DIDs for 12 bucks, right? So you need to make sure you understand that costing when you're building that ROI. Um, so um, Roger says, uh, I'm teaching two brand new intro cloud computing courses for Ferris State University next semester. Congratulations, Roger. Uh, they were they were created last summer, so recent events will surely guide the discussion of these classes as well as it should. As well as it should. Tony says that USG video is extremely well done. I think viewers would love to see more videos where things are spelled out. I think so too. And so I think you're going to see a lot more of that from me as well. Um, uh, some sometimes I will tell you that creating those slides where those things are spelled out it helps me move through the process. And I didn't cover some things on there, and some people pointed out in the comments, but that's what a lot of this is about, right? Let's start this conversation. So Jeremy actually brought up, hey, can you do a comparison between something like a USG or an OpenSense and what we would consider like a home, a home user router? And I think that is an appropriate video. We'll see if somebody beats me to it now that the idea is out there. But I think that's a great idea, and I think that is a video that people need to see. Bob says, "Oh, that begs the question to all of you YouTubers for a background TV OLED or something special." So, Bob, it's an LCD TV probably, and it was my daughter's 19-inch TV, and she had it for years, and then we upgraded her. I think she's got a 32-inch, and so yeah, so it's a little old, but still cheaper than running a CRT. Good morning, Unky Joe. Unky Joe's Playhouse. Yeah, this morning I don't have anywhere specifically to be this morning, so we're running it. We're gonna run it for a little while here. Roger says, FSU is offering a 4-course certificate for high school students, 2 cloud classes and 2 cybersecurity classes. Students will get a certificate from FSU that looks like a diploma. Well, that's kind of cool. Roger, can you explain to us the process of how classes are created, how the content is vetted? Um, I would be interested to know that, because if Amazon has paid to have the class created, obviously there's going to be an Amazon slant on it, right? If Google paid to have it, there's going to be a Google slant on it, right? So I would love to see for a college type certificate how that comes about. So I want to thank everybody too. If you were in my trainings November, December, we're going to wrap up this week. We're doing a 1-hour Q&A session for those folks that participated in training. You know who you are, and we are going to we're going to ramp up the training in 2022, I think. David says he's talking about the used machines that he uses. SPX Labs, the lubrication comment, alcohol is a great lubrication when it comes to getting your mind unstuck, getting your mind going sometimes, and across the world, And I'm, if you or a loved one has an addiction, you should definitely seek help for that. But many great deals across the entire world have been forged over a pour of your favorite beverage. Oh, that's fantastic. Roger says after the completion, they get a $4,000 scholarship to FSU. That's fantastic. TVJ says, as a content creator, finding time is my biggest challenge when creating videos. Absolutely. So, my family is my number one priority. And then I have my day job. I have my consulting company. And then I create content. I do training, right? So striking a balance. That TVJ hit the nail on the head. JH says, I helped a 911 call center and they can't use SIP. They have to use a PRI, and I totally get that. So copper lines, traditional copper lines are going away, and they're going away quickly. We just had an email from a traditional copper provider, and they told us you have to do something with these unless they are an alarm line, an elevator line, yada, yada, yada. So it's, going to get serious, but, PRIs can have an outage just like, a SIP provider. Now granted, they go to a private network, but there are also SIP providers that go to a private network. So let's talk about that. There's a link to Unky Joe. I don't know if Unky Joe is streaming today. Maybe he can let us know in the comments. JH says Untangle is a great home use router for like $50 a year. Now, I don't disagree with that, JH, but the average home user probably isn't looking to getting into installing an operating system. Now, don't get me wrong. I help a lot of folks with their home networks, and they love that learning, and they've got that mindset to learn, and that's fantastic. And I love that when we can help people learn. But I think the large majority of people, and I think that's why you saw Ubiquity spin off Ubiquity Labs and come out with the Amplify product, is because there is a huge need for products that are just plug and play. And so admin engineer, good morning. Hey, at least you are here. That looks like a MikroTik on your shelf. Are you playing with it? No, yes, I am always tinkering with the tick. This is a Hex S, and it's my favorite small MikroTik router switch. Let's see here. All right, SPX Labs, you're welcome for answering your question. Have a great day. And breakfast, most important meal of the day. However, I am on intermittent fasting right now, so I don't eat until noon. TVJ says maybe I should make a video with a drink next time. Hey, try it and see if it works. Bob Carpenter. I have not been drinking this morning besides my coffee, I promise. What has been my favorite pour lately? It's been between Wild Turkey 101 this last week and Evan Williams Bottled in Bond. Both are very, very affordable and available and have a fantastic flavor profile, my opinion. So bourbon is just like IT, right? You're going to get all kinds of crazy opinions from all kinds of crazy people, right? So as always, it's what you like and what you in bourbon, however you drink it. Like if you're getting into bourbon and you're on forums and people are like, oh, don't add ice, don't add soda, blah, blah, blah. You do you. And there are plenty of us out there that are not going to judge you, that are not going to make comments to you. How you enjoy it is how you enjoy it. And that's what we should be supporting. Let's see. Sean says, yes, I got informed from COVAD. That our EDIA circuit, which is copper based, not fiber, is being turned down in January. Yeah, there it is. So, Unky Joe will be streaming at 11 a.m. Maybe I'll stream until noon. We'll see. Is everybody going to stick around? I'm just kidding. Unky Joe, I'm not going to stream until noon. He says he's going to have some guests. Gina says in the UK, all PSTN and ISDN get turned off in 2025. So the clock is ticking, about 3 years left to get rid of your copper lines if you're in the UK. Sean says, so I've been working for 2 months to get fiber from Verizon into the building. Good luck. Man, what a process that can be. JH says, Untangle sells a pre-installed box. The smallest is a Z4 for right under 300. JH, can you email me a link to that? I think I would like to pick that box up. Roger is now commenting. I asked earlier, if you're just joining us, if you're just catching up, I asked Roger. Roger is teaching a cloud class in cybersecurity at a university. And I asked him how the classes are created, who curates the content and things like that, and asked if cloud providers were paying for that. And Roger says no payment from AWS, though FSU does have an AWS focused course. The idea was started last year, and the 2 cybersecurity courses are current bachelor's classes that he is also teaching. That's fantastic. Bob Carpenter says, Willie Howe, I still cannot believe how fast ticks boot. They boot faster than anything I've ever seen. Yes, MikroTik routers and switches boot extremely fast. Unky Joe says, spouse just bought me a bottle of Woodford Reserve for Christmas. That's fantastic, Unky Joe. Is it the double oaked? Um, double oaked, if it wasn't $54.99 a bottle, would be my daily driver, so to speak. It's too expensive of a pour for me to drink it every day. And when it's here, it's fantastic. I'll drink a finger, two fingers, and before you know it, the bottle's gone. And at that price, I just can't, you know. So I got to get a bottle, and I got to get like a thing where it's like special occasion bourbons, right? And because I've also got a bottle of Sugarland's Roaming Man rye, and when you can find it, it is extremely expensive, and it is a fantastic rye, and that is going to be a special occasion type pour as well. Yeah, Woodford Reserve is definitely the double oaked is in my top 5. Good morning, Harry. Are you a wizard, Harry? That was the poorest impersonation of a Harry Potter character you've ever heard in your entire life. Bob says, I cannot imagine how much it would cost a telco today to maintain copper today versus what they paid in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So that's a thing, right? So at one of my locations, we had a copper break. First of all, they had a hell of a time finding the copper break, right? So now you've got T1s down, you've got services down, people can't work. There's no good map. They think they know where the copper is. Turns out the copper is not where they thought the copper was, right? So you have all these things happening since that 100 pair, 250 pair, whatever, however big that cable was put in back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. Um, Literally the tech, after they finally found it, looked at me and he said, I'm going to just let you know that if the copper breaks again, AT&T is not going to have us fix it and they will not replace it. And so, like, without him saying, you better be getting on the fiber bandwagon, we knew you got to get on the fiber bandwagon right now, or fixed wireless. Roger says the other course is building cloud further, and we were using CompTIA Cloud Plus for the base of this course. The faculty at FSU sign off on the course creation and do the accreditation work. That's fantastic. Roger says the first cybersecurity course is very broad overview of the cyber world and the risks working in that world. Open the eyes of my students who didn't realize all the dangers that existed. And Roger, you bring up a good point, and that's even trying to get people in the C-suite or people who make decisions at businesses when it comes to funding and being aware, uh, just making them realize. So I, um, you know, look, I like to be a part of the conversation, but even in an event where somebody would send me, so I train people when you're on Facebook, don't fill out those questionnaires. Don't do it. You're putting too much information about yourself out there on Facebook, on Twitter. Don't answer those questions, right? But even some companies will create a questionnaire because they want to get to know their employees and they will send it out. Well, it's like, okay, you're asking like, where'd you grow up? Do you have dogs? Do you have kids? What do you like? What do you like? What's your favorite movie? What's your favorite food? Blah, 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 blah. I won't, I want to participate and have friends and be social and recognize people for the work that they put in. But companies got to think about the kind of information they collect and how they store it. And like I won't fill those forms out just because sometimes I can't guarantee how that information's stored, how it's protected. And some people may think, well, that's not PII by the strict definition. However, now you have somebody's name on a piece of paper. You have all their likes, their dislikes, and questions that you might ask somebody when you're starting to date. Uh, and you take that. So now I've already broken into the company, right? And some hacks are not complicated. Sometimes people find piles of paper with people's personal information lying around, and that's unacceptable. And, sometimes that happens, but, like, could you imagine, like, I'm getting into this company, you know, and I find a stack of paper with all this information and I see person's name. Now all of a sudden I'm out Googling these people. I have their information. All it's going to do is take a few errant social media posts to verify the information that this person put on this piece of paper. Guess what? And I actually had this conversation with somebody yesterday because they asked me if I filled out a form like that. And I said, no. I said, I looked at this person. This person was getting their vehicle. And I said, how many of those questions that are on that piece of paper actually have to do with one of your passwords? And he looked at me and he goes, oh, oh, you're right. And I said, I don't know how the information is being stored, right? I don't know how it's being secured. And people can roll their eyes and they can scoff and they can think that. But, the best way to protect information, first of all, is to just not have it. And so that's a whole other, conversation that we could have. We could literally spend, and Roger, you probably agree with this. And if not, let me know. But like we could spend an entire week, 3, 4 hours a day talking about just that situation and the consequences of that. So, uh, let's see. That's Unky Joe says it was the $50 bottle because he loves you. Everybody loves you, Unky Joe. Here's to you. Jacob Johnson, yo, I'm late. Yeah, well, you're here and we're still rolling. And more people are coming in. 72 of you. There's 44 thumbs up. Smash that thumbs up button. Let the algorithm know that we are here and we are burning through the questions. Let's see here. David Anderson said, yes, that was clearly the most horrible Hagrid impersonation that he had ever heard. Let's see. Roger says, I'm a high school teacher working as an adjunct professor at FSU and offering the courses to my high school students. That's fantastic. The more that we can educate people when they're younger, really, when folks are younger, they're more amenable to concepts and ideas and change and things like that. We live in an electronic world. We really do. Um, and did you ever think about this though? You ever think about folks who live in areas and they're kind of secluded and don't have the technology? Do you think they're happier than we are? I would love to know that. Blaine says, try and find a cable splicer who can work on a 3,000 pair cable. So the last time I had to work on a big cable pair, it was 100 pair cable. So 200 conductors. And I was on a ladder and they were building a pizzeria Uno in this hotel. I happened to be the IT manager at the time. And the boss comes to me and he goes, we got a problem. Construction says we need to move this 100 pair cable from this side of the wall to this side of the wall. And and you need to do it. And I said, okay, I'll do it, boss. And none of us really knew what ran through that cable. I mean, hotels get revamped and stuff happens. And when I cut the cable, the fire alarm started going off. And so we got all of that taken care of, but I was on that ladder for hours, even with 200 conductors, and the lighting was bad. And even with a headlamp, I mean, you're up there, you're sweating. I mean, it's just, yeah. And I can only imagine a 3,000 pair. How many different color variations are you running through? I would have to imagine in a 3,000 pair cable that you have multiple bundles inside the cable so that once you run through the color spectrum once, it starts repeating in another bundle. I mean, that's the way that I have to imagine that that's done. I've never seen a 3,000 pair cable. So TVJ says about 7 years ago, our dry pair line got cut and they basically told us to move on and that it would not get fixed. We bought Ubiquity and haven't looked back. So what's funny about that is one of the first DSL providers in this area that I was in was buying dry alarm loops for like $20 a month, and then was providing DSL to people. This was years ago, and then the telco caught on, and then they changed the rules, so this cat couldn't buy dry alarm pairs anymore because he wasn't an alarm company. Morning, Dale. Dale, thank you so much for the coffee and the whiskey stones. If you go back and watch the replay, I talked about you a few minutes in. I appreciate it. I opened it up. The coffee smells fantastic, and I have to grind it. So I'll be drinking the coffee tomorrow. Um, and I will be using the whiskey stone. So thank you. And I hope your wife is doing well. And I hope you are doing well. Bob says the craziest hack I ever heard about was a major stockbroker house in Vancouver that never changed the Nortel default setup reset password. Someone reset it from the courtesy phone in the lobby. That is absolutely crazy. TVJ says attitudes are changing regarding security of information. Our timesheet provider was just hacked last week, and a lot of employees asked about their data, and they should. And I look, like I said, I want to be part of the solution. Anybody who has ever dealt with a CFO, you understand the personalities that come along with that, but they need to be inviting the IT people to the conversation and not making decisions without IT people. I mean, I don't tell you how to run the books. Don't tell me how to run the IT department, right? Or how to run the IT setup. So there needs to be a conversation. And that's another thing that we need to work on. The pandemic definitely did not help, but communication. Uh, we need a lot of help communicating. We need to figure that out. We need to figure out how each other communicate, how we do it effectively. I mean, I'm culpable as that, to that as well as, the communication breakdown sometimes. I mean, I have clients that I work with that sometimes the communication, you think you're on the same page and you're really not. So, hey, AS400s are still, there's a lot of Unix out there still. Justin, have a great weekend. Let's see. Oh, yep. Have fun doing your camera install. We are going to go to a bourbon tasting this afternoon. And I'm excited. They've got a few pours that I've been wanting to try. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm hoping that they're going to have bottles on hand for sale for those of us that bought into the tasting as well. David Anderson says goat farmers in Turkey seem pretty happy without tech or toilets. So it really depends on your perspective. Yeah. As good as this this has also got some real bad things. And we got to have a conversation about it look at look at the Facebook whistleblower, right? I mean, can you imagine, when I was growing up, I had I was 16 years old. I had a job. So I started out cutting grass, right? My dad wanted me to have responsibility. He was a work hard, play hard guy. In the beginning, I cut grass. I cut enough grass that I bought bubblegum machines and then I had a bubblegum machine route. Right. So, and then, here we are, but my humble beginnings as a bubblegum machine vendor. But I learned responsibility, and I learned about that. And my first cell phone was not a smartphone. It was a bag phone. And I thought I was king of the hill. I thought I was king of the hill. I had a bag phone. I paid an ungodly amount of money monthly for that bag phone. And I thought it was so awesome. People probably thought I was a drug dealer because of the bag phone, but I thought I was cool. And I had a Ford Taurus station wagon, and I had to pay for the insurance. I had to pay for the maintenance. But it was different times, right? So we had pressures then. And I'm circling back, right? So this is why I need like a 6-hour podcast. But we had pressures back then. They were different pressures, right? And we knew things happened and things spread quickly, but things don't spread as quickly as they do now. If something were to happen in New York, I would likely get within seconds some sort of a notification or a pop-up on this device, right? Kids are living through filters. So imagine the stresses and the hormones and everything of being a teenage kid when you were a teenage kid and how awkward we all were, and take it and throw filters on it, take it and make it accessible so that you have to now compare yourself. It's no wonder we have problems. We've done a lot of this to ourselves, and it is going to take likely a global conversation for us to be able to peel some of those layers back. At least the United States at least needs to have a conversation about this. North America. Morning, Sat Vision. Roger says, I don't think the limited tech makes them happier, but I think the lack of access to social media most definitely is more positive for them. So if you're just catching up, what Roger is commenting on is I asked the question is that in countries that don't have immediate and access to social media, are they happier than we are? Um, and so that's what we're discussing. Prav, all right, it's 2:15 a.m. where I am. Have a good weekend. Yes, you have a great weekend as well. And let's see. Ryan Murray, everyone in the old neighborhood knew what gumballs really meant. So not only did I have gumball machines, I actually, uh, there's a teacher that my son actually still has, and I'm not going to name her, but I have a friend of mine whose name is Jason. That's all I'm going to use. I'm going to try to keep this as anonymous as possible. But at the time, I used a company called A&A Parkway. Now I think they're called A&A Global Industries, and they actually may have changed to A&A Global Industries at the time. I could buy anything, man. If you saw it in a capsule vendor, from a half inch to an inch, I could buy it. And he knew this, because when you walk by my car in the high school parking lot, I had boxes of bulk candy. Now they were sealed and all the health department stuff was followed. But after school that day, I was going to be going to service machines. My favorites were like the 2 or 3 inch gumballs. Those were my favorite. Anyway, he says, "Hey, let me see that catalog," And so he's like, "We need a bag of sticky hands." And I said, "Okay, how many sticky hands do you need?" And he said, "Order like we ordered like a bag of 500 sticky hands." They did not come in the capsules, so it's weird. You can order blank capsules and a bulk product, and then you can combine them yourself, or you can buy capsuled product, right? So, um, I order him this bag of 500 sticky hands, and we're walking into English class, and he starts handing them out. And when the teacher turns around, everybody throws a sticky hand on the ceiling, and she turns around, and then there's all these like sticky hands just like hanging down, like bouncing. He eventually got caught, but he's the kind of cat that says snitches get stitches, right? So he didn't rat anybody else out. Some people had pockets full, ended up getting rid of them. Anyway, just a little nostalgia there. But uh, you know, um, JH says this is close as social media as he gets. Well, thank you for being here. I do really appreciate each and every one of you. You really don't know how much it means to me that people want to listen to me do these videos and have these conversations. TN Bighorn says my first cell phone was a Panasonic bag phone, and I like to have had a heart attack when I got the first bill. It was $600. Yeah, anybody who had one of those bag phones, you remember you could get a battery, right? So you didn't have to be tethered to the car. It was awesome. I could pedal my gumballs anywhere. Morning, Robert Wells. Tony says, I remember the first car phone installs, no age jokes. $1,700 handset installed on the transmission hump, radio in the trunk, antenna wire under the carpeting. So go ahead, and those of you who are with us, make sure first of all you hit that thumbs up button. If you're just a visitor, go ahead and subscribe. But also in the comments, please let us know what your first cell phone was. Let's talk about this. So Tony really did date himself there. But Tony, you must have just been, I mean, people just must have just thought that you were from out of this world, man, with the mounted bag phone. I mean, you went through the trouble to mount the bag phone. That's high society right there. And that's something else, man. I commend you on that. Let's talk about these cell phones, right? Blaine says I bought my wife a Pac-Man machine at Costco for Xmas. Oh, that's fantastic. Is it full size or one of the mini ones? And Tony says the antennas were either drilled onto the car body or magnetic. Talk about thinking you were cool. Yeah, I remember those magnetic cell phone antennas that you could get. Um, uh, the I remember I used to have a CB. We used to drive around all over, and I had a CB. I had a toolbox in the back of my truck, and I mounted the antennas. Yes, I know what that sounds like. But I mean, we were just high school kids having fun. But I'll tell you what, we drove all over Iowa, Missouri, Indiana, Oklahoma, and having a CB saved us a lot of money, probably in the long run. And truckers, a lot of truckers are really willing to help people out. believe it or not. Like if you're in a situation, they will help you. T and Bighorn says, yeah, I worked for audio installers in Rockford, Illinois, and that $600 bill was with their discount from Cellular One. Yikes. I'm going to probably accidentally butcher your name, but is it Zahn? Hello, Willie. Good work. Where did you find your hoodie? So Ubiquiti sent this to me years ago. And I had another one. I don't know where it went. I've got some Ubiquiti hats too. Occasionally, they will send me swag. Tony says it wasn't a bag phone; it was actually made for sedans. Oh, so this is like a mounted like phone. Whew. And there it is. There it is. That's the comment I was waiting for. The gold comment. Joe says Tony also had it blinged out in all gold. Yeah. Bob says he had a Moto Hammer, aka the handheld beast. I'll never forget my first flip phone. I was so excited about it. I had the Moto Razor. I was so happy with that. Gina says BT K9 cell phone needed good muscles to carry it. Replace it with a Motorola Cityman. Dave says I'm in the same age bracket as Tony. The first ones were not bag phones. The bag phones came a bit later. Whew. Mr. BB says my first cell was a Motorola Dynatac. And here it is. Here it is. We knew we were getting to the root of something here. We were getting to the root of something. And Tony says it was not blinged out, but it was installed on a white Lincoln Town Car with a blue rag top and leather interior. Tony. Bob says the 4W bag phones were still popular for a long time because handhelds were what, like, yeah, miniature cell phone towers you're carrying around. Blaine says mine was a suitcase phone. Don't remember the brand. We called them XJ phones. It was a two-way radio. Yes, and I had the Motorola phone with Nextel here in the States, and you pushed a button and you queue it up. TVJ says, my mom had one of the first analog flip phones because everyone in the hospital she worked for was eligible one for only $19 a month. That's a steal. You can't even get cellular service prepaid that cheap. Jacob says, I have a box somewhere of the old big brick phones, like first gen antique bar flip phones. Don't drop them on your foot. Brian says, Nokia. There it is. There's the winner, that Nokia. They say that the case for the Nokia was to protect the ground, not the phone. Bob says Moto StarTAC was still one of my favorite all time. Roger says Motorola StarTAC with the car dock that had the 3-watt booster in the trunk. Is 3 watts even legal now? Like, let's have a conversation about that. I think it's hilarious. Yeah. Tony says bada bing. Tony says, forget about it. Forget about it. Jacob says, I still have my Nokia 5165 with more RGB mods than modern PCs. That's funny. JH says, I still have a pager. You know what? I thought it would be kind of cool to have a pager. So, all right. It is 9:27 a.m., December 18th, right? December 18th, 2021. I want to thank you all for being here. We went for a nice little session today. I do got to get going here, find out what my wife's got in store for me. But I do want to thank you all for being here. You will see me again, hopefully, the stars align before Christmas. But if you don't see me before then, I want to thank you all for being here. If you celebrate Christmas or whatever you're celebrating, have a good time. And if you need that consulting, go to williehow.com. Follow me on all the socials. There's some polls out there about rack mounting stuff. I want you to see that. Everybody be safe, be happy, be kind, pay it forward, and we will talk to you and see you in the next video.